Okay, so together, what do the mean and standard deviation of a data set tell us? We'll use the file that we ended the last video with. And together, if we look at the mean for a data set and the standard deviation, and assuming that there's not much skewness, this rule of thumb we're going to talk about holds very well. 68% of our data will usually be within one standard deviation of the mean. 95% within two standard deviations. And this comes from what's called the normal random variable that we'll talk about a bit later. 99.7% within three standard deviations. Now, if you have a lot of skewness, this won't hold as closely, but in general, it holds pretty well. Okay, so a couple of examples of this before we apply this to the Cisco data. And any data point more than two standard deviations from the mean is called an outlier. It's an unusual data point, sort of has a 5% chance or less of occurring. Okay, now sometimes there are reasons why an outlier occurs, but we learn a lot by examining outliers in statistical analysis. But let's talk about IQs. So for people, the average IQ is 100, and the standard deviation is 15. So 68% of IQs of people have IQs between 85 to 115 and 95% approximately between, if you go two standard deviations below the mean, 70 to 130. And one more example, pro football point spreads. So, you know, like in this year's Super Bowl, I think the Patriots were favored by 3 by Las Vegas. And that's sort of your mean, the mean score of a pro football game is pretty much what the Las Vegas point spread is. Okay, so the mean would equal the point spread. Now the question is, what's the standard deviation about the point spread? And the answer is around 14 points. So 68% of all games end up just about within 14 points of the point spread. And 95% of all games end up within 28 points of the point spread, two standard deviations. So when is a pro football game an unusual game or an outlier? And the answer is if it's more than 28 points away from the prediction. So for example, if you look at that Super Bowl game, let's suppose the Patriots were favored by 3. Okay, so an outlier would be Pats by beating that spread by 28 or more. Or if you go 28 less than that, Seahawks by 25 or more. 3 minus 28 is 25. So what would be an outlier for the Cisco data set? Okay, so what we need to look at is the mean from here and the standard deviation from here, which we've got. So the mean is 5%, the standard deviation 19%. So if I take that mean and I $sign that and I go minus 2 standard deviations, and if I just copy that formula down and change the minus to a plus, this is the normal range of variation for Cisco. Now, people are shocked by the normal range of variation. I've asked classes, including football coaches in them, what do you think 95% of all pro football games, what range about the point spread includes 95% of all pro football games? And they'll say 5 or 6 points when the answer is 28. You've got to understand normal variation to understand the data that you're seeing in your job or your personal life. So an outlier for Cisco would be a month in which Cisco went did worse than minus 19% or better than above 30%. So Cisco went up 28% or down 15%. That's normal variation in Cisco's return. Okay? Now let's highlight the outliers. So we could say anything that's below minus 19%. So if I would go home, conditional formatting, highlight cells. So we could say greater than, let's say 0.19 in red. Sorry, I've got that wrong. It would be, the cutoff is between, for Cisco, minus 19 to 30%. So anything above 30% is an outlier. So I've got home, conditional formatting, highlight cells rules. Let's say greater than 30%, we'll say is an outlier on the high side. And then home, conditional formatting, highlight cells, less than, minus 19%. Let's make that an outlier on the low side. And let's try green. Okay, so there we see our outliers. So there were some months that were bad for Cisco. There was a good month, a bad month, etc. And so that highlights our outliers. And we try and learn from our outliers what was going on. So this is when the internet was really growing quickly. You can see Cisco was going through sort of a huge growth spurt in the stock because people are learning this is a stock to invest in. And then we had the internet bubble sort of started to crash, and we could see there were outliers on the low side. Okay, so in summary, when you know the mean and standard deviation, form a mental picture in your mind of your data set. 2/3 of your data should be within 1 standard deviation to the mean, 95% within 2 standard deviations of the mean. That will really help you frame what a data set looks like.
Okay, so thanks for watching, and there's a free course, a free 21-day course from Dr. Winston, and all of these videos are coming from one of 3 books. So first, this one, which you can see here at the top of the screen, Microsoft's book, which has 355 reviews, and then it's, let's see, 4.6 stars. It's coming from this book as well, his marketing analytics book, which is down here, and you can sort of see 4.5, or his newest book, his analytics stories book, which is here. And with that one, you can see it's 4 point something, or maybe even 5. I don't think it's 5. Yeah, 4.8. And so, yeah, anyways, in the description, there's a free 21-day course from Dr. Winston, or you can go to excelwithwayne.com/free, and it'll be there. But again, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, just please let us know. Thanks.